another dish. Hello and welcome to another edition of Disabilities Issues and Updates. I am Teresa Faulkner, your host, and I am the Consumer Community Outreach Coordinator at Abilities in Motion. We are located at 210 North 5th Street in Reading, Pennsylvania. The zip code is 19601. Our offices are closed due to COVID-19. However, we are still working. If you need to contact us, you can reach us at 610-376-0010. Our direct extension is O for the operator, and then she will direct you to the necessary parties. I am so excited about our show today. Our topic is emergency preparedness, better now than later. We'd like to welcome our guest, Beth Setterly, who is the Director of Interpreter Services, Berks Deaf and Hard of Hearing Services, and Laura Matthews Swada. She is the Disability Integration Specialist at Abilities in Motion. Welcome. It's so nice to have you both at our show today. Before we begin our talking points, I just want to set the mood, set the atmosphere. Disasters can be a frightening event for adults and very, very frightening for children. However, children are better at adapting to situations when they know what to expect. This year has been full of disasters all over the world: thunderstorms, tornadoes, floods, hurricanes, earthquakes, wildfires, just to name a few. Some of our viewers today may have been a part of myself and Laura's presentation of emergency readiness. Our children may have asked, what do we do if a disaster happens? Our world is changing. Climate control, global warming, nothing is what it used to be. We are full of resources. There's data. We have visual reminders, lots of conversations, yet persons are not prepared. Why? Why? Why are persons not prepared? I think I heard somebody made a quote. They said, be proactive, not reactive. And so we want to get started today with some of our talking points. Laura and I are going to tell some of our personal situations, some of the things that we do within our job spectrum. But Laura, why do you think persons are not prepared? They don't want to get prepared. Why do you think that is?
A lot of people have the attitude that it won't happen to me. And as we've seen, just like you mentioned earlier, that it can and it more than likely will happen. So I think it's a lot of that mentality. And what we work to do is change that mentality so that people are prepared and are able to handle anything that may come their way, disaster or emergency related.
We know that emergencies and so forth do happen. Just even in our everyday lives, we've heard of house fires. We've heard of different things that have happened in our communities, in our families, where things happen and persons are not prepared. I think about a situation that I had a couple years ago where I had went to vote. I went to vote at my voting place. And please remember, audience, voting is coming up for November, so be ready. But anyway, I went to my polling place, did my voting, came out of the place, was on my way. It was a beautiful day, and I was walking across the street, and I got hit by a car. That to me was an emergency. But one of the things that I learned from doing emergency preparedness was that you need to be proactive. So when I got hit, I wasn't knocked unconscious. However, people were rallying around me, asking me information, and I had in my purse my medical to go, which I was able to hand over to emergency responders. They were able to treat me based on my current information and get me to the hospital. Thank God I made it, but I'm so glad I had that little tool in my purse. Laura, do you know of situations where persons have had emergencies and they might have been a little unprepared?
Oh, absolutely. It happens all the time. If we look at, some of the challenges that we're facing, with disasters and things, there can be a whole gamut of things. Part of that can be, simple things as service animals becoming disoriented. Anybody with a emotional or a developmental disability might become disoriented as well and confused because they're not sure what's going on. Simple things as somebody with a respiratory issue could become more stressed and their respiratory issue is exacerbated, but maybe their equipment may not be working due to a power outage or something that may be going on at that time. So there's a wide gamut of things that can happen. I mean, simple things as the power going out that affects the technologies and equipment that people need to maintain their daily living or things that they use to assist them. Same things with transportation. Transportation may be down due to the nature of the disaster. So there's a lot of things that we can face when something happens, and we go back to that being prepared, having your plan and knowing what to do when something happens will help you in the long run to maintain your independence and self-sufficiency.
Wonderful, wonderful. You brought up in your discussion, you mentioned some things, and it kind of made me want to let our audience know if you have a disability, it takes a little extra. You need to prepare. If you don't have a disability, you still need to take extra and be prepared. When we talk about, you were talking about service animals, you were talking about if the power goes out, why is it so important as far as being able to communicate effectively before an emergency or a disaster happens?
That's actually so that everybody's on the same page as you. So when you inform your support system, so say it may be your neighbor that's part of your support system, or your personal care attendant, or your husband or wife, or your children, whomever that may be, when you communicate your emergency plans to them, everybody's on the same page and they know what your needs are. And they know what to do or how to assist you if something happens. So I mean, something as simple as, and I'll use my children as an example, if something happens here at my home, we know where to meet up. There is a place that we've picked, and if there's a fire, something that we have to evacuate the house, and we're all getting out on our own ways, we're going to meet at this meeting point. So it's just a way of making sure that your support system knows what your plans are, knows what your needs are, and that everybody follows the same suit.
I'm sure you would agree when the emergency or disaster is in motion, now is that is not the time to plan. You need to plan ahead of time. So let's just talk about your children because you do have younger children. How are they? Were they involved in your emergency and disaster preparedness?
Absolutely, because they've grown up with me and having a disability, they know that I have extra needs or possibilities of needing extra assistance during an emergency. So they have, we've communicated things. They know they need to get out of the house and not worry about me. But when it comes down to things, they know that when we're outside of this house, that there may be things that they're tasked to do to be able to assist me to navigate everything.
Wonderful.
So very much involved, very much
Wonderful.
involved.
So even if you are at one place, say home, and your children are at school or might be out with friends, they know where to meet in the event that there would be a disaster. They know your plan.
Correct. They know the plans, and we also have cell phones so that, as long as the cell phone towers don't go down and things happen like that, we're still able to communicate using our cell phones. That way, if something changes, maybe our meeting point is not able to be gotten to by me, or maybe they can't get there for whatever reason, we're able to communicate with each other by our cell phones too.
Wonderful. I have adult children and I have grandchildren. And now I haven't done it so much with my grandchildren because they're with their parents. But I know when my children were home, we kind of made a plan that in the event there would be a disaster. And guess when we made that plan? We had an earthquake experience in Reading one year. And I thought, we've got to have a plan. We've got to have a plan that in the event something were to happen, we as a family would know where to meet up. So there are things, even before emergencies or disasters take place, you need to be proactive and start with the plan. We've talked about challenges. We there are challenges. If you have a disability, there are more challenges. But let's just kind of like dissect challenges that persons or individuals with disabilities may face in the event of a disaster. What do you think, Laura?
Are you talking about like access and functional needs?
Yes, yes.
Ah,
Ah,
okay. That's just want to make sure. So, access and functional needs, this is not really taken into consideration. It's sort of like the new buzzword within the past 10 years in the emergency management community. But somebody with an access and functional need is somebody who, or an individual who has needs before, during, or after a disaster in functional areas. So, somebody that's pregnant has an access and functional need. Somebody with a broken bone or bones has an access and functional need. Somebody who is non English proficient has an access and functional need. It's not an exhaustive list. There's a whole wide range of things, but these are individuals that may need assistance during it. So I go back to another one that some people don't think about is transportation dependent. Those who don't have driver's licenses or don't have vehicles, somebody who depends on durable medical equipment. So there's a wide list of people out there that fall under the access and functional needs category that aren't even aware. One of my other things that I sort of use as a shocker to tell people about is even a single parent is considered to have an access and functional need.
Really? Why do you say that? Why do you say a single parent?
Because they are alone. They are maintaining maybe one child, maybe multiples of children. It's not a two-parent family, so they're a little bit less. They need more help. So they need a bit more assistance when it comes down to things.
Wow, wow. So it really should cause us to think. It could be older, it could be seniors, it's across the board. So can you say honestly, everyone is involved, Laura, in that access and functional needs?
But if you looked at it, maybe it really does depend. I never thought about it that way, but possibly. But yeah, you did mention too, children, elderly, and other, children. People don't take that into consideration, but children absolutely falls under access and functional needs. Elderly adults fall under. So yeah, we all,
But
we
if you have
all
a
fall under there.
disability, most definitely, there's a lot going on there. Uh, Laura, I would like to share with our audience, you also wear another hat. You
Mhm.
work for the Red Cross. Tell our
Right.
viewers what you do there.
I am a disability integration divisional advisor. It's a tongue twister to say that. So I mentor the disability integration team in 9 states. So I work, do sort of the same thing that I do at the Center for Independent Living. I work with clients that may need some extra assistance during disasters.
Many of our viewers, I'm sure, have saw about the wildfires that are in California and other disasters that have happened. But at some point in a disaster, there will come a point where you will have to say, should I stay or should I go? Laura, give us a little bit of information about what determines that a little bit.
So let me first put out that it's ultimately up to the individual themselves as to whether or not they stay or go. But something I'd like to put out there as well is the fact that if you remain, rescue may not be fast. If you need assistance quickly, depending on the disaster, the nature of the disaster, somebody may not be able to get to you quickly. And the other thing to take into consideration too is you may be risking first responders' lives to get to you, to try and rescue you. So it's just something to keep in mind when you decide whether to stay or go. But again, it's ultimately up to you whether you want to shelter in place, if you feel more comfortable doing that, or if you want to evacuate and go to a shelter or to a friend's house or someplace else. But it really is individually determined, as to what that person would like to do or that family would like to do.
Thank you. I remember of a situation where I did emergency preparedness at a senior high rise. And we did the preparedness, we gave out the booklets, we talked about different situations that had happened. That particular topic was dealing with 9/11 and what would we have done if that would have been in our area. Anyway, uh, this is a story that is really true. After I did the presentation, gave the information, I went away. And about 2 weeks, I got a call about one of the consumers or residents that lived at a high rise who one day a bunch of her and her friends were going out to lunch. Uh, she passed out on the elevator. They had to call emergency responders, the ambulance. And as soon as they contacted them, the representative on the other side was asking them a lot of questions. One of the persons that were with this lady remembered that she had filled out her emergency preparedness booklet. They went and got it, was able to give the emergency responders until they got there. She was safe, she was sound, and today she is doing well. So we need to really begin to think about emergencies every day, but disasters if they actually come. Let me ask you a question, Laura. Have you ever been involved in a disaster situation where the persons actually had to leave? They had a disability. They had to leave their home. They had to leave the things that helped them to be independent. They lost it in the process when they went to the shelter. What happened? Explain a situation like that where they went to the shelter, they didn't have the necessary things that helped them to to be independent. How were you able to help them at the shelter?
We did have, I have worked with clients that have lost their specialized or their power wheelchairs. And when they have gotten to the shelters, or is now in the hotel shelters that they're placed in due to COVID, I've helped them to be able to connect with their insurance companies or the vendors that have created their wheelchairs or specialized wheelchairs in order for them to work with them to get another one replaced for them.
Wonderful. But did the person have the information, all their paperwork? Did they have their serial numbers to the wheelchair? Did they have all of that information in a safe place, waterproof, fireproof, windproof? Did they have all that information?
One family did, the other family did not. So one family was very prepared with it, because it was something that happened quite frequently in their area where they lived. The other one was quite unexpected. And again, I go back to the preparedness. They were not prepared, were evacuated very quickly due to floodwaters rising and could not take the specialized wheelchair with them. So there's two sides of the story. Prepared, yep, they had everything they needed. I'm not sure what they had it in, but I know when I was working with them at the shelter, they absolutely were able to pull out a file that had all the information for the vendor of their power wheelchair and the information for their insurances to be able to contact them.
Right. So it's very important that even before an emergency or a disaster, you have all your pertinent information in a safe place, all the paperwork in a safe place. We've seen with the wildfires in California, when FEMA and all of them come in, you're going to need this pertinent information. So it needs to be safe and sound. On a sidebar, I want to let our viewers know about something I learned that our veterans can use. I was in a training recently and I understood that veterans can file their discharge papers. I think it's called a DD 214 with the recorder of deeds. So if you have important papers, veterans or persons that are in the military, you can file that information at the recorder of deeds. Laura, I have to say, you have sparked my interest in talking about being prepared, being proactive instead of reactive concerning emergency preparedness. We cannot discuss all the things that our viewers would need to do even before an emergency or disaster in 30 minutes. But please know we are here for you. If you have questions, if you have concerns, if you need information, please give us a call at Abilities in Motion. We would be more than happy to get you started, to give you the resources, even some fun things you could do with your children in reference to preparing for emergency preparedness. Laura, our show is almost over, but I'm sure you and I, from Abilities in Motion or with Abilities in Motion, want to remind our viewers to continue to be safe, to be protected, to do what's right, to wear a mask, to wash your hands, and to be safe even in this time of the pandemic. In closing, we want to say to you together, be prepared. Plan and then practice. Have a wonderful day.
Disabilities Issues and Updates on BCTV is supported by the Berks County Center for Independent Living, Abilities in Motion.